The Galactic Council gathered in their Grand Assembly Hall, a vast chamber where the most powerful species in the universe dictated the fate of lesser civilizations. The air was thick with authority, arrogance woven into every word spoken by the elder races. At the center of it all, a lone human diplomat stood, listening in silence. Humanity was new to the stars. Compared to the ancient empires that had ruled the galaxy for millennia, they were nothing, a species still learning to walk while others had long mastered the art of war, diplomacy, and conquest. The council saw them as little more than a curiosity, an experiment that had somehow stumbled into interstellar politics. Mockery echoed through the hall. The reptilian warlords sneered, their clawed hands gesturing dismissively. A species that still bleeds. How quaint. The insectoid hive minds chittered in amusement, their collective consciousness finding humor in the absurdity of a species that required sleep, food, and shelter to survive. The luminous beings of the elder races, creatures of pure energy, pulsed with amusement. They die in mere centuries, and yet they think they have a place here? Laughter rippled through the chamber. Humanity had no exoskeletons, no natural weapons, no built-in defenses. They lacked telepathic abilities, biological immortality, or the ability to exist in the vacuum of space unaided. To the Council, they were an evolutionary mistake, weak, fragile, insignificant. The human diplomat did not react. He stood still, hands clasped behind his back, expression unreadable. His silence only encouraged further ridicule. They war among themselves, killing their own kind over trivial differences, scoffed a representative from a machine-intelligent species. They rely on crude technology to compensate for their limitations. Tell us, another voice called out, thick with amusement. What has your species done that warrants a seat among us? What could you possibly offer? The Council had already decided the answer. Humanity would remain under strict observation, confined to their home system, denied access to the deeper mysteries of the universe. They were not ready. They would never be ready. Still, the human did not respond. He simply watched, measured, waited. The Council continued their deliberations as if he were not even there. To them, this was not a discussion, it was a formality before they dismissed humanity entirely. They expected anger, desperation, perhaps even a plea for reconsideration. But the human diplomat remained silent, unmoved. There was no pleading, no protest. Only a quiet, knowing patience. And that was the first mistake the Council made. They mistook his silence for submission. The murmurs of amusement gave way to open disdain. A towering reptilian general leaned forward, his scaled lips curled in a smirk. Do you not speak, human? Or have you finally realized your place? Another alien, an avian diplomat with iridescent feathers, clicked its beak. Perhaps they lack the intellect for true diplomacy. Their kind solves disputes with war, not words. Laughter spread through the hall, some shaking their heads in mock pity. The hive-mind emissary twitched its antennae. Their history is littered with self-inflicted wounds. They turned their own world into a battleground long before they ever looked to the stars. The council leader, an elder entity whose form shimmered like a shifting nebula, let out a deep, resonant hum. It is clear that humanity is a violent, short-lived anomaly. What wisdom could they offer a civilization that has stood for 1,000,000 years? Agreement rumbled through the chamber. It was not anger that fueled their disdain, but indifference. Humanity was beneath them, an unstable species, a candle flickering in the cosmic wind, doomed to extinguish itself before it could ever become significant. The verdict came swiftly. You will remain within your system. Expansion beyond soul will be monitored. Violations will not be tolerated. Only then did the human finally move. A slow, deliberate tilt of the head, a breath drawn with purpose. And then, he spoke. You misunderstand us. The words were calm, even soft, but they cut through the room like a blade. The laughter faltered. Some shifted in their seats. The diplomat continued, his voice carrying an edge that had been absent before. You see our wars and call them self-destruction. You see our struggles and call them weakness. You look at our bodies and think us fragile. You believe we are less because we do not live for millennia, because we do not command the elements with a thought, because we are bound by the limits of flesh. The room was silent now. Not a single voice rose in interruption. But let me ask you this, he said, stepping forward. Do you truly know what we are? The diplomat's voice remained steady, but there was a weight behind it now, something undeniable. We were never the strongest, never the fastest, never the most advanced. Compared to you, we are young, insignificant. But you mistake our youth for ignorance. You mistake our mortality for weakness. His gaze swept across the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member, unflinching. We mastered fire while still hunted by beasts. We forged steel while kingdoms rose and fell. We split the atom before we even left our own atmosphere. Every obstacle, every limitation, we overcame them, not because we were the most fit to survive, but because we refused to accept defeat. Some council members shifted uncomfortably. The avian diplomat, once amused, now watched in wary silence. The hive-mind emissary's antennae twitched, processing. The human continued. You believe we are violent. You are right. But our wars were never mindless. Every battle, every loss, every scar, it made us stronger. We do not fight for conquest. We fight because survival demands it. We fight because no force in the universe has ever given us peace, we had to carve it out ourselves, through blood and fire. A silence stretched across the room, heavy and unfamiliar. You call us primitive because we have no natural weapons. And yet, we are the only species that has turned entire planets to ash with the push of a button. You mock our short lives, but we do not waste them. We burn bright. We build, we innovate, we push beyond what should be possible. You look down at us now, but you will not forever. A cold certainty settled over the chamber. The council had dismissed humanity as unworthy. But now, some of them began to understand their mistake. The diplomat took one final step forward. You fear war, because for you, it is an inconvenience. For us, it is a crucible. If you seek to contain us, you will fail. If you seek to break us, you will learn what it truly means to stand against a species that does not know how to surrender. A pause. Then the final words, spoken with quiet finality. You are afraid of us. And you should be. The silence that followed was absolute. The mockery was gone, the smirks erased. For the first time, the council truly looked at the human before them not as a lesser being, not as an anomaly, but as something else entirely. The reptilian general, once so amused, now studied the diplomat with narrowed eyes. He had fought countless wars, seen empires fall. And yet, there was something unsettling about the quiet confidence in the human's voice. The avian diplomat's feathers remained still, a stark contrast to their usual restless shifting. The hive-mind emissary, normally so sure of its collective thoughts, hesitated as thousands of consciousnesses processed the implications of the words spoken. The elder entity, the one who had dismissed humanity outright, flickered uncertainly. For all its eons of wisdom, it had never considered the possibility that a species so young could be so dangerous not because of power, but because of sheer, unrelenting will. No one spoke. No one argued. There was no decree, no official statement. But the shift had already happened. Humanity had entered the chamber as an afterthought. Now, they were an unknown, an unpredictable force that could no longer be ignored. The human diplomat said nothing more. He had no need to. He turned and walked away, his steps slow, measured, unconcerned. Behind him, the great rulers of the galaxy sat in silence, their previous arrogance now laced with something far more human. Fear.